Hello everybody, this is Wasp here with another episode of the Wasp Workshop, and today I'm going to be talking about pivots. IMJK gave me the idea to do a video on this, and I thought it was a pretty good idea. First of all, I want to say that it's not the most necessary tech on the planet, especially at lower levels, but I thought it'd be a good video to do because it's a very important thing that you should know at least how to do it, whether or not you choose to do it, and just to understand it, it'll give you a better understanding of Melee in general. So I also want to say, before I really get into here, is that this video is not a video on pivot mastery. Alright, so if you want to get really good at pivots, you should look for another video elsewhere, or just once you learn how to do it, you really just gotta play around with it. Basically, what I want to do is just explain what pivoting is, how to do it, and just give a quick starter guide and some of the tools, some of the easiest tools that come along with doing it, that you can actually implement pretty easily. So before I get into anything, I just want to give a quick demo here. I've seen a lot of other videos start out this way, and I think it's a really awesome idea. And as you notice, I'm using Marth, who's not my main. But Marth is one of the easiest characters to demo this with for a few reasons. One, his dash dance is really wide. He can dash dance very far, whereas some other characters have to keep it, pretty close. And also, as I'm going to show here, you can actually see Marth's standing frame as he's dash dancing. So you don't see this with all characters, though you're capable of doing it with all characters as far as I know. But when you dash dance, as you pivot, as you turn around, there's one frame where your character is actually standing completely straight. So he'll basically just be standing like this in the middle of the dash dance, and you should be able to see that. Hopefully my camera or my capture card can pick that up. I can zoom in a little bit. That's a little too much. But you should see that floating Ginger Marth head, and that's the frame you're gonna be after. And it is one frame as far as I know, so it's a pretty tight timing, but there's a few tricks to handle pivot stuff pretty easily. The one way you can know you're doing this right, and I'll just do a quick demo here. You can do there we go. As I said, I'm not the best at this, but that's not what it's about. So it's kind of hard to tell what I'm doing here, but basically you can do things while you're in that frame, while you're on that frame. And one way to know that you're doing this right is to just do an empty pivot. I don't know if that's the official term. Basically, if you are in dash and you pivot, as those two are, those are kind of hard to see, but like I said, I'm not the best at this. If you pivot just right, your character will be perfectly standing straight. Looks like I'm better going right. And whereas if you don't do this correctly, you'll just continue a short dash dance in the opposite direction. So that's one way to test out that you really know what's going on here. Just a little bit of theory here before I get into some applications of this. The reason why this is such an important tech at the high level, and why it's a very technical thing, is because, like I said, it's a one frame thing, and so it's pretty tight to do. But what it does is it takes away some of the limitations of your movement and of your character. So, as you probably have noticed, there are two different types of running. There's the dash, and then there's running that comes after the dash. You'll see his legs start moving a little bit faster, and the easiest way to understand this is that you can dash dance within your dash frames, or your dash distance, you can call it. And as soon as you go out, you no longer can dash dance. You'll do that awkward, gym floor turnaround with socks. So, these two different running states have different limitations. For example, when we're just standing here, which for future reference is going to be exactly the same as when we're in our pivot. We can do anything. We can do any smash attacks, B moves. B moves aren't the best. The special moves aren't the best item to look at here, because we can also do several of them in our dash. But we can do anything when we're in standing. However, when we're dashing, I'm smashing the C stick here. You can't do anything, even while running. You have to in running, you can crouch cancel and then do something. And jump canceling, as you most likely already are aware of, it overcomes a lot of what you can and can't, or of what you can't do in your dash. For example, I can jump cancel and up smash. And if you're a spacey, you can jump cancel and shine. You know, there's all kinds of things you can do. Jump cancel grab. If you are unfamiliar with these things, I suggest you go look at another video. There's tons of great ones out there. And also, if you're an entry-level Smash player, it's one of the most essential things and one of the easiest things to learn. And the sooner you learn it, the better, because it's just a muscle memory thing. And once you learn it, it just kind of becomes instinct. So, moving on, the whole idea of this pivot thing is to allow us to do things at times we usually wouldn't. And so, I'll give you a couple examples. So, using Marth here, we're gonna be targeting that one frame, and while you can do the empty pivot, again, I don't know if that's the right term for it, that doesn't really do anything. It looks pretty damn sweet, but what we want to actually do is, you know, use moves that we wouldn't be able to do. So the first one is just that, the pivot jab, and this, it might not make as much sense with Marth, but like I said, these apply to all the characters. Here we go. Some characters have really good pivot jabs. The Spaceys are pretty good, although they're not the best range. Falcon has a great one, especially because he can use his Gentleman's combo if he can do the, you know, if he gets hit confirm and whatnot. Another one is a pivot F smash. There are two ways to do this, which I do actually want to demo. Here, let me get my camera on over here. So, before actually I do this, I just want to say, in addition to pivot F smashing, which is honestly the only thing I really use with pivots personally, not to say that's the only thing you should use, but in addition to that, there's just about anything you can do. Like I said, when you're standing up, you can do anything. So you can pivot tilt. I probably won't be able to show it to you most of the time. Oh, there's one. Most of the time I do a pivot tilt, it's just me screwing up doing a pivot smash. But there's two different ways you can go about doing this. I'll bring my controller over here. And so the timing, like I said, it's a one frame input, but it's actually pretty understandable at the human level. Because basically, the one frame happens right as you smash your stick, left or right. And so basically, you can do this visually or by sound or just by feel, but basically, you're going to want to press your button, whatever it is, right as your stick hits. So, for example, if I want to do a pivot forward smash, I'll try using A. This is a little bit harder. But I'll do it right, so I'm going to dash left, and then on the pivot right there, is when I want to do my F smash. And there are two different ways to do this. You can kind of choose which one you want to start out with. You can either use A, or you can use the C stick. And in my opinion, the C stick is way easier. I don't actually have great muscle memory for this, so my execution will not be awesome. But the advantage to A, even though it's, in my opinion, harder, is that it gives you access to the tilts, whereas the C stick, you will not be able to do that. So depending on what you want to do, you know, how high you want to raise your ceiling, that's up to you. But either way, you're going to be slamming your button or your stick right as you slam your control stick. And with the C stick, it's the same thing. You just, I'll go right and then left. Just right as you dash left, or right as you slam the stick left, also slam the C stick left. So it is one frame, but you should be able to get a couple of them in there just playing around with it. It's the fact that I'm getting a decent amount of these is pretty good, because I do not practice this, I do not use this very often, and just the fact that I can get these out decently well shows that it's not impossible by any means. So there's the pivot F smash. That's one of the most common ones people use. It lets you, because usually if you're, say this Jigglypuff is behind you and you're in a state where you're dashing forward, you can kind of catch people by surprise, and you'll see a lot of this at high level play, where you'll make people think, or you even go through. Although, like I said, you have to be within dash range, so. But that's really good for catching people off guard, and it's one of the most easy things to implement with this tech. So the next thing one of the most relevant ones I like to show is is doing the same thing, but as you've noticed, I'm always turning back the same way. But you are not limited in direction when you're doing pivoting. So, one of my favorite things to do, although I do not do it, I'm not a Marth main, although I've tried doing it with Spacies, but for some reason I have a little bit of trouble. But you can dash forward, and while you're still in your dash, you can F-smash going forward. And this is a really awesome, it's pretty easy in my opinion. It's the exact same thing as I was doing before. This is what I was doing before. I would slam the C-stick in the same way, but instead I'm going to slam in the opposite direction. So I'm going to go dash left, and then I'll go right, and I'll slam them back. Or if you're going the other way, you'll slam them apart. And you just got to time it at the same time. And it will be pretty easy to get the muscle memory to do that on the same frame. And this is, like I said, it's specific to Marth players, but you guys will have to use your imagination. I will bring in a couple other characters after I'm done with this little section. But I'm sure whatever your character is, you can think of some things you might do with this. For Marth specifically, there are a ton of times, usually not with Jigglypuff of course, but you'll be throwing somebody, say an up throw on a Spacie, and they DI too well, and you can't get the F smash. They'll land just outside of it, and you've completely lost your opportunity to do anything. Well, if you can read or react to them being farther away, you can get way more range. And because Marth's dash stance is so big, the range is so big, you can get pretty far over there and then do an F-smash, which extends your F-smash reach by quite a bit. See, Jigglypuff is nowhere near me here, but there I can get a tipper, and that wasn't even max range. And another tidbit here that I have seen in a lot of high-level play, and I've also seen a lot of videos, is that some, because, this is Marth again, but, Marth has a hard time killing at hypersense. But one thing Marth can do on certain floaties is, and I know this works on Jigglypuff around like 50 to 60% or something like that. I can't really do it that well, but a lot of floaties can be forward thrown into pivot F smash, and if you do it right, if you space it right, you can get a tipper and get really early kills. And that's another really awesome thing to do for you Marth players. And it is a little bit debatable whether or not you want to do it, because even if it's relatively easy, you can still mess up and then completely lose your opportunity. But if they're really far away on a forward throw, you're kind of out of reach anyway. And then, so I'm basically done here with Marth, but I do want to bring up one more point on the jump canceling on chain grabbing. So again, this I probably shouldn't have the puff here for this, but for those of you who I'm assuming most of you guys already jump cancel grab almost all the time, unless you're playing a character that specifically urges against that. And I just want to point out one thing that I've had a lot of people not come to me about, but I've seen them get frustrated with their chain grabbing, whether it be on Fox, whether it be a Marth, and it's when you up throw and someone DIs behind you, and they'll smash left, and they'll try jump canceling their grab, because as you can see here, I'm smashing left. Well, it's hard to do when I'm looking at this. I'm smashing left, or I'm smashing the opposite direction, and then jump canceling my grab. And Marth, it looks like he kind of turns for a second, but then he goes right back. And that is because I'm jump canceling the grab. So one thing about pivots is that when you jump cancel them, there's a certain amount of frames that you have to wait for your character to turn around, and that'll be different based on your character. And so, just in case this might happen to you, it's just something to be aware of when you're chain grabbing and you're staying in place and you want to pivot grab. Just do not jump cancel it. Honestly, there's absolutely no point in jump canceling a grab when you're stationary, because the whole point of jump canceling a grab is to simulate being stationary for that first frame of your jump. But most of us, or a lot of us, do it anyway, just because that's our muscle memory. So if you're ever getting stuck in your chain grab pivots, just do not jump cancel, and it'll be super easy. So I'm gonna go into other characters here. And so basically, from here on out, I'm just going to be kind of going over some other examples of different characters and stuff. So if you've kind of already gotten the gist of the pivot, feel free to take your leave. So the next thing I'm going to do here with Captain Falcon And I haven't practiced this either, so please don't make fun of me if I can't do this very well. He's one of the biggest pivot characters in the game, and they're really awesome, but they're pretty hard to do. But somehow the top level Falcons can do it really well. So that's an example. Like I said, it's a little bit harder to tell. It's a little bit harder to tell with some characters when that frame is, because, you know, Marth had that perfectly vertical frame that you could clearly see his head, but that's basically just a beginner's thing. So, because this is not the pivot tech in general is not a visual thing. It's a timing. It's just a thing you have to get the feel for. There's a good. Oh, this is awful. Get me out of here. Uh-oh. Did I screw something up? 20xx? Let's hope not. So, as I said earlier, the pivot, jab or gentleman is really good with Falcon. Falcon occasionally has to deal with pivot grabs as well, like as I mentioned with Marth. His forward smash is not as big of a thing as say the Spaceys or Marth, but you'll see it a lot in play anyway. It catches the people off guard, and in fact, there's a lot of times when Falcons will accidentally elbow, and but it'll work out. So it's definitely an option if you want to just try to catch people by surprise. I've been trying to use the A button, but the C stick is just so much easier. So honestly, unless you're really worried about doing tilts with your character, I would just do the C stick. But the one thing I did want to bring up that I really wanted Falcon for is that pivot aerials are also a huge thing. Falcon specifically, the most common one you'll see is the pivot nair. And it's kind of a defensive thing when you're getting away from somebody, because you'll see Falcons do this a lot. Sorry. When they're dashing away from their opponent, they come back and they accidentally go a little bit forward. And what they're actually trying to do, that is usually a mistake, because typically you want to be doing it as you're going away like that. That's kind of a get off me button. And so if you can successfully get the pivot, and so basically you're trying to do the standing pivot or the empty pivot, and then as soon as you can, or on that same frame even, you would nair. And if you want to fall back or whatever, because Falcon has pretty good horizontal mobility in the air. So you'll see that a lot, and that helps him kind of get people off of him if he's, people are chasing him. There's a good one. Rewind that. Oh, there's another one. Oh yeah, baby. So that's just another thing with the pivot aerials are a pretty big part of it, and each character has their own thing going on with that. Let's see if I can get a couple more in here. The only thing I do want to say about this is that, and then I'm not going to expand on this too much because it's probably a topic for another video, but for those of you trying to learn these things, learn a lot of these pivot things, the reason, because there are a few alternatives that you can kind of get the same thing going a little bit easier, but the pivot itself is the fastest way to do most of these things I've been showing. But whereas, for example, if I wanted to do the pivot nair I was just trying to do, you can also do that with a shield stop. And if you don't know what a shield stop is, it's basically just when you shield while dashing or running, and it stops you. And so if you were to, it kind of gives you a little bit of a buffer. For example, if I try doing the pivot but accidentally am too late and I start coming forward, I could do, instead, not risking it, I could shield right as soon as I'm done pivoting. So you'll notice if I do it too quickly, it'll turn into a roll. If I do it right on time, it'll look like I shield almost exactly as I pivot. Whereas it's actually a frame or two later, or even greater, depending on how slow you are. And then if you, as you know, you can already jump cancel out of your shield, and so you can almost accomplish the same thing with that. So that's kind of the layman's way of doing things, and there's a lot of different things you can do that I've described in this video using the shield stop. But like I said, the pivot, it's a really good thing to learn. It's the fastest way to do most of these things. And the one danger, as you've seen with doing the shield stop thing, is that it's very easy to mess it up. And if you're playing against a good opponent, they will be able to punish your buffered rolls very easily. So that's, I think, is going to wrap up my video. If you have any questions, let me know. Like I said, I'm not a pivot master myself, so I can't really give you a whole lot more than what I've given you here, but just a basic foundation of what it is, why it and how it's used, and then a few starter places where you can try practicing things. It might seem like I'm kind of secluding the characters here because I've only showed Marth and Falcon, but I promise you, try it with your character, and there will be all kinds of things you can do with them. Especially spacies. Almost everything I've listed here can be done with spacies as well, although some of them are a little less intuitive, others more so. But yeah, that'll do it. Thanks for watching.